Captain Starlog, September 1st, 2152. While in orbit around an apparently uninhabited planet, we have encountered an uncharted minefield obscured with some kind of invisibility field. Our hull was compromised when one of the mines latched on, leaving us immobilized and vulnerable. Despite the risks, Lieutenant Reed, with his ordnance training, has volunteered to head outside to defuse the device.
And hailing frequencies are once again open. Welcome back, podcast fans, Trekkies, Trekkers, and everyone who happens to be listening to this new episode of the Hit or Miss Star Trek podcast. We're back. You've seen us sporadically, but we did have a little mini series of Romulan episodes earlier in the year with the promise that we'd be back to finish that off. And so for the next 4 weeks, we have the remaining 4 Romulan-themed episodes. I won't spoil what's coming up, but hopefully there's some treats in store. We were supposed to have 2 guests with us today. Unfortunately, somehow both guests have actually managed to fall through. So if you are listening, by the way, and if you are a Star Trek fan, and I know there's lots of you out there that would love to be on the podcast and give your thoughts and opinions, please get in touch and we could have a good stable of guests to call on. But in the meantime, you are stuck with your regular hosts, which is me, of course. I'm your regular host, Captain Mike Wilson, joined by my other regular host, DK.
Hello, and I apologise that it's just us.
Hopefully it'll still be a decent episode. We've both prepped at least, and you've had episodes with just us before, and at least we are knowledgeable about one of us is knowledgeable about Star Trek. that was a dig. I apologise.
Yeah, I'm used to that shit now, mate.
Nah, we're here and we're gonna talk all things Trek for a little while anyway. Maybe it'll be shorter, maybe it won't. I always say that when there's just 2 of us, then it ends up not being, so we'll find out. So, today, as you probably can tell from the thumbnail and the various things on screen, we are navigating a minefield. No, we're not just opening social media on an average day. We're looking at the Star Trek Enterprise Season 2 episode of the same name, of course, because it features the Romulans. So it fits into a Romulan-themed series. Well, it kind of does, but, it's enough of an excuse to watch an episode. So that's what myself and DK are going to be reviewing a little bit later on. But if you are, new to the podcast or you just need a refresher, we always break it down into little sections. And we always begin with a section that was going to be very, very short this week, but a section that I call Hailing Frequencies Open.
Hailing frequencies open, sir.
So, DK, as I said, there's not really a whole lot we can do about this one because we've kind of given all of our Star Trek, story and journey and favourites over the years. If anybody wants to hear them, they can go back and listen to the episodes.
Yeah, do the work, bitches.
Yeah, precisely. So, have you been watching any Star Trek lately?
The last thing prior to this that I had watched was the final season of Discovery.
That's cool. That might come up later. So, yeah, fair enough. And, it's weird. You still haven't watched the last season of Lower Decks, then?
Oh, God, yeah. I actually did finish that.
Oh,
I forgot to tell you that, yeah.
Wow.
It must have been about a month ago now.
Dang,
And
it's about time.
It's completely gone from my head. I'm trying to recall what happened, and it's just not there.
The big thing was obviously the return of Nick Locarno, the other Robert Duncan McNeil character.
Oh, yes. I had to explain to my significant other who that was, and then they looked at me and like, I know.
I just love that they make an actual joke of it in one of the episodes. When is it Boimler and Rutherford? One of them's like, he looks exactly like Tom Paris. Nah, I don't see it. I just.
Yeah, I did enjoy it, and I'm sad that that's only getting one more season.
I know, I'm really not happy because they want to go on. They've kind of made it known, like all of the cast and the creators have said they want to go on, but it's not their decision, which really sucks. I mean, there is campaigns around there to save it. Yeah, it's a real shame because, I mean, we already knew this was going to be the last season of Discovery this year, eventually, but we didn't know that it was going to be the last of Lower Decks this year until, a few weeks ago, and now feels like it's going to be a rough year because we have potentially the last season of Prodigy if Netflix don't pick it up as well. So we might have 3 series finishing in a year, which is not the best.
I mean, what else do we have? We've got the Section 31 thing coming up, but that's just a one-off movie, isn't it?
It's a TV movie, so it'll be like 90 minutes, I assume. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the next thing we've had announced is that wonderful "let's go back to the start of the Federation" nonsense again from Paramount.
Oh, they announce that every 5 or 6 years. I'm not gonna until that's actually in production and I've seen pictures. I'm not gonna believe that's happening. We've announced this so many times, but yeah, supposedly that's a movie that's coming, which is set, pre-Federation, Kelvin timeline or main timeline, whatever. Like I said, they've announced that particular thing multiple times. They've announced a different movie how many times now, and we've gone officially the longest period between movies since they started now, which is depressing. The longest gap officially and counting. Because previously, I think it was 7 years between movies, and we've already gone about 8, something like that, which... Yeah, and there's no indication of any real movement on any front. But I mean, we have got the Starfleet Academy show coming up, which we finally had confirmed is going to take place in the Discovery 32nd Century timeline. So that's good.
Is it going to be Tilly though?
Well, it has to be. I mean, the Discovery finale, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, confirmed that Tilly was the longest-serving Academy instructor, ever, longest tenured. So it would be weird to have a show where she's there, but she's not part of it. Is my thinking. And
again, this is Paramount.
Well, again, yeah, you might have a point there. The fact that it's Paramount is kind of, but I feel like there'll be an uproar if she's at least not in episodes as a guest role or a recurring thing or something. And I've got a feeling that like you might see other Discovery crew, especially with the, again, spoilers if you haven't seen the finale, the kind of reference to, we've decided on this mentorship program where one person would take one cadet and one-on-one they'd kind of, it kind of leaves you open to doing that, to bring in various Discovery crew members to be those mentors to your whoever your main characters are. Yeah, so I'm hoping that's the case anyway.
I mean, I'm guessing it does leave it open for certain members of the Discovery cast to pop in every now and again, which would be nice. Maybe they'll get more of a, now Michael's story's kind of over, maybe they'll get more of a spotlight, as it were.
We were just getting used to getting to know the bridge crew that were, not the main, senior staff. And weirdly, the final season just seems to have shipped them all off and replaced them with whole new people to get to know. And I just thought, like, that was such a weird choice to do,
Yeah.
But, yeah. I want to see the adventures of Owosekun and Detmer piloting the ISS Enterprise.
That must have been one hell of an adventure.
They didn't just go straight to headquarters. They were like, nah, joyride. Yeah.
It's like that couple in the couple of guys in the stolen car in Ferris Bueller. I just want to see what they got up to.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you never know. I suppose there's always a chance. But no, if anybody's unaware, Alex Kurtzman, I don't have an official statement, but I did read. He confirmed that it's going to take place in that timeline because, in his own words, he wants it to reflect more of like the world today, and he feels like the Federation post-burn that's kind of, fractured and just picking itself up is more akin to what's going on with us kind of post-COVID and with the various sort of discord in the world now than it would be if you said it in the height of like the Federation utopia, which I can see his point. Yeah. So yeah, that's going to be the situation with that. But yeah, we've got Starfleet Academy, which I know is definitely filming, so that's definitely going to happen. And they've cast Holly Hunter as the lead, which great, fantastic work. Getting an Oscar-winning actress again. Yeah, not much else to say. That and Section 31, and then the remaining, presumably, 2 seasons of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, if Anson Mount can learn to keep his mouth shut. But we'll have to just wait and see. If you don't know what that's about, think yourself lucky. I'm not going to educate you. Go and look it up. Yeah, I mean, I am looking forward to seeing what Strange New Worlds can do, especially because I just rewatched season 2, and so it's coming to that cliffhanger, the first time in New Trek that you've had it, and I'm like, oh, I want to see what happens next. Yeah, so, yeah, anything else? Any other Trek things flicking about that you know about?
No, that's pretty much all I've done, really. Watch Lower Decks. I can't believe I forgot to tell you about that. Watch Lower Decks, and then the last season of Discovery. So
I forgot to mention to you off air, so we may as well have this conversation while we're recording. How do you feel about the fact that they're dropping all 20 episodes of Prodigy season 2 on one day?
it'll be a fun day. Whether how it goes after that, I'm not entirely sure. I know it's kind of like Netflix now, and that's de rigueur for Netflix.
Mm.
How it's going to work though when it's an episodic? Well, I mean, this first season was episodic. I don't know.
We know what the season synopses all are. Well, if you've been looking, because they aired the whole thing in France like a month ago. So I know that it is still episodic, and I know the basic synopses of what's happening in all the episodes already. So.
Yeah, I'll watch it. I'll enjoy it. I'm just, to be honest, at this point, I'm kind of grateful that we've got a second season, because it was strictly down to Paramount. We wouldn't even be getting that, and I'm not Netflix's biggest fan, but I do thank them for this. And
I think if more if they commission a third season,
yeah, if Netflix are willing to put up the money, then I'll keep watching Netflix. I mean, they've got form for doing some really good animated shows. I'm currently watching the Chaos Theory.
Yes, I'm working my way through that. I've got 3 episodes left of that as well.
Oh, I'm finally beating you on something. I've only got 2. So yeah, I will be there, as you know, as we discussed on our episode of Time Amok. Prodigy is, in our opinion, maybe before Strange New Worlds came along, the closest thing there was to proper Trek from the.
I don't like using that word, but certainly it was my
favorite.
Yeah,
I know what you mean. The classic Trek, as it were. It earned its commission, and then for Paramount to do what they did, it was treated very unfairly. So yeah, kudos to Netflix.
It irks me all the more because I'm currently working through the season 1 Blu-ray because I want to try and watch it before season 2 comes out, and it's such good quality. Like. Almost every episode, there's the odd one that's like maybe a 5 or 6 out of 10 instead of a full. But there's so many 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10 episodes, and I'm watching them like, how did this show get cancelled? It's just so unfair, Yeah. It's such a good story and everything. And without spoiling anything, you're in for some treats when season 2 comes around that you're fully not going to be expecting, and some really cool Star Trek stuff and Trek callbacks again, and things like that. And as I say, from the preview clip, we've got Robert Picardo as the Doctor in the whole season, I believe. Certainly he's in there, so that's something to look forward to. So
I just want to see more adventures with this, and are they? I mean, you obviously know more than I do. Are they carrying on the plot line with the Prometheus and Chakotay and all that kind of stuff?
The Protostar, you mean? Yeah.
Protostar, yeah.
Yes.
I'm hoping it. I'm hoping it continues, because I mean, I'll be honest. When I first saw the promotional material when it was released way back, I had my doubts, but yeah, they
it was the same.
A damn good job.
It really impressed me, and I had a full-on argument with somebody on social media the other day because they were complaining about, why is Star Trek allergic to doing anything post Voyager around that timeline, because they haven't commissioned Legacy and because the Starfleet Academy is going to be in the future. And I was like, both Lower Decks and Prodigy take place after Voyager in that timeline. Well, no offense, but one's comedy and one's for kids. I was like, that is offensively reductive. They are both fantastic shows.
Yeah.
But, if you're going to be so blinkered and so biased as to be like, well, I'm not watching that, it's a cartoon, then screw you. You're missing out.
I mean, I'll be fair. You can either moan that nothing's set in that period, or you can moan that, that TV show is for a certain member of the audience that you're refusing to watch. It can't be both. You've got to, got to make a choice. You've got to make a choice. And if you choose not to watch it, fine, that's your choice. If it's not, not everybody likes everything, fine. But then you can't moan about it, that they're not giving what you want when they are doing. You're just choosing not to watch it.
Exactly, and I think it's so annoying because I feel like if these people give it a chance, because like you said, when we saw the initial kind of character designs for Prodigy, the animation style and stuff, we were like, oh, Nickelodeon show, it's going to be, it's not going to be our kind of thing, but we'll give it a try. And then it literally ended up becoming both of our favorite of the new Trek series. Yeah. So, try it. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, it's a cartoon, it's for kids, seriously, give it a try. It is the most Trekky Trek, for want of a better way to put it, that you've had, I think, since the new
And
stuff.
Likewise, when it comes to Lower Decks, I'm not the biggest fan of Mike McMahon. I'm not the biggest fan of that type of humour. And for the first season of Lower Decks, I was kind of on the fence. But I've grown to love it as it's gone on. And
it's really kind of taken its place as a sequel to Next Generation, I think, more than any of the other shows, and it's picking up like. Well, I mean, the clue was from the name because, like you said, it's picking up on really weird plot lines of minor characters from Next Gen and stuff, and running with that. So it's cool.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you can see the love that they've got for the franchise. I mean, the Easter eggs. Unless you're a fan, you wouldn't be getting them.
Yeah, exactly. It gives me some hope that Tony Newsom is at least in the writers' room for Starfleet Academy. Shame that she's not going to be playing Mariner anymore at that point, but hopefully, with that voice there and with the people that she knows, presumably that she can lean on as well, it's going to presumably have some Trek flavour to it. So
yeah,
fingers crossed. And yeah. As I say, that will conclude the longer than I thought it was going to be Healing Frequencies open section. As we have a chat.
So we're like Les Dawson over the fence.
Yeah, I mean, we could have had that conversation off air, but I was like, yeah, record it.
No, if we're going to do it, we're going to bore the audience.
Exactly. Oh, bless. As they look at their clocks, like, how many minutes has this been already? Fear not, we're moving on to the next section, which is the section that gives the podcast its name. Yes, DK, you are still on the hook for this, even without guests. We are doing the hit or miss section.
What about my performance? I'm not a drama critic.
Oh, God. You see, this is what I don't like when there's no guests. Because normally, when there is a guest and you come up with something that my memory has blanked out, I have a few seconds to scrabble around and try and find out what it is we're discussing. Now it's just going to be, what that?
Well, fear not. Part of the reason I was a little bit later getting the recording link to you was because I was getting the visual aids ready, because I know that we need them sometimes, just in case. I don't think you can
Idiot boards. Idiot boards for DK.
There's absolutely no reason. Looking at the 4 things that I've picked for this hit or miss section, you're not going to need them, but what the heck, they're going to be there anyway. So let me just. Oh no, 5 things there. My apologies. So yeah, 5-piece section. We're going to go. As I said, if you don't know what this entails, basically I pick anything from anywhere in the Star Trek universe, throw it out, and ask. In this case, DK, our guests, if they were here, if they think it's a hit or a miss, a little bit of an explanation why. We debate back and forth if there's any disagreement, and we, take it from there. In this case, there can't really be a consensus because there's only 2 of us, so we'll decide, which one of us, I guess, which one of us gets the deciding vote. Who cares? We'll just all agree to disagree. We're quite, lackadaisical about that, and I'm sure there's very little disagreement with us usually anyway. So we'll see how we go. And because this is the Romulan-themed series, I am dotting Romulan-themed things in the hit or miss section, though not making them the complete hit or miss section because that would be kind of boring. So if you see Romulan things coming up, that's why. And in the meantime, let's take it away with our first thing. So the first thing on the hit or miss section for today, we kind of alluded to earlier, and I kind of had to do it. I'm so intrigued about your thoughts because we haven't talked about it yet. Hit or miss the Star Trek Discovery finale, Life Itself. Over to you.
I enjoyed it. It perhaps was I was getting Return of the King vibes at the end because I was thinking,
well, they filmed that last 20 minutes like months after they were done because they didn't know they were cancelled, and then that was literally, oh crap, we better film an epilogue.
Yeah, it did kind of. It was a little overlong, but I think it deserved it. And I thought it was a nice finale. The main storyline, little predictable. If you're I'm not even going to say a long-time fan of Trek, but if you're a fan of Trek in general, you kind of knew how it was going to resolve itself.
I was kind of surprised, to be honest, because I thought, like, with new Trek, you never really know where it's going with these things, and I was, pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I kind of thought that there's no way in heck that they're gonna let this technology last. For a brief second, I did think Burnham was gonna end up back in there. Spoilers, by the way, if you haven't seen it.
Oh yeah, spoilers by the way if you haven't seen it, just generally for this particular question.
You might want to avoid this for the next few minutes. I did think that she was going to end up back in there, and that was going to be her kind of off ramp, as it were. But the whole, this technology is too advanced. If you've seen it once in Trek, you've seen it 1,000 times. So I did think it was going to go that. But there was that moment of doubt when Burnham was in, the whatever it was, the 2001 MacGuffin. So yeah, and that was kind of shook. The only thing that really grabbed me was the Kovic reveal, which
Yes.
really surprising. I did not expect.
I don't know how planned that's been. That feels
exactly.
like
You look at it and you just think, was that the plan all along, or are we just writing stuff in to just kind of shock? But I don't care because I liked
it
it.
works.
Yeah, it does. And my mouth was agape when that happened.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, I kind of enjoyed it. As I say, the finale, a little stretched out, but it was worth it just to see, again, people like Detmer and Nawashikon and stuff like that. And although one of my friends did say, we didn't see much of Grudge. So, yeah.
I mean, wouldn't Grudge technically... Oh, no, they did mention that Grudge wasn't dead, so he's obviously fine. I don't know how long cats live, you see.
I'm going to say that is one hell of a long-lived cat, unless it's, we're doing a Simpsons and it's Grudge 4
I was going to say, it could be Grudge the Second, it could be the child of Grudge,
Yeah.
But, yeah. No, I'm going to throw this out there because nobody's really mentioned this, and I'm not sure if it's just my brain. I was convinced I knew what was going to happen, and I'd second-guessed them from the second that... Book was given the life root or whatever in that library a couple episodes ago, and I was like, and they keep on saying like, oh, we can't recreate, like they can't bring the Breen dude back to life because that they can't do that. They can create life, but it would be whole new. It wouldn't have memories, etc. And I was like, is this going to be their way of just recreating Quajon? Like, oh, we can't bring back the people that you've lost, but your species doesn't have to be dead, so we'll start them all over anew. And I'm like. Yeah, I feel like they kind of missed a trick not doing that.
Yeah, especially when especially with the route and things. But I mean, didn't they mention that he put the root somewhere at the end?
Oh, they were living on kind of effectively a reborn Quajon without the people because he planted it, and they were living on a place that obviously was, that was the point, was that they'd created a new Quajon where they were living, and it was all of their foliage and stuff, and so he'd kind of recreated HoM in this place. But like I say, I still kind of felt like you could have brought back the species. I mean, obviously, that's kind of a nice proviso, if anything, is that, like, by the way, it won't be the people you knew, but it'll be new members of your species, because it's not really fair they got wiped out. But then again, as I said, I kind of like the idea that the ultimate message is nobody should be playing God, and I loved the reveal that, like, even the supposed progenitors were like, not our technology, we found it. There's a higher being than us responsible for this, I was like, cool.
Yeah, I did like it. I did enjoy it. I mean, I've got to ask you, because I remember when it first started, you weren't really on board. So now you've seen the whole thing. What did you think to the season as a whole?
It's weird. I still don't like the final season, but I will go out and say now, I love the finale. I think it was a massive hit. It's the only episode of the season that I think was like 9 or 10 out of 10. And maybe it was just, recency bias or the excitement of watching it. But when it finished, I was like, it might actually be the best series finale of Trek, because it kind of wrapped up in a way that the others didn't necessarily, wrap up with the big message that they're trying to say, wrapped up the story of their series, and then give you that nice epilogue that sent everything on its way. And, they even did the Trek tradition of an artificially aged lead character in a future Admiral's uniform. So, yeah. That's become a staple. So, no, I liked the finale, but like I said, I never really cared for the story of the season, and it kind of feels almost like more so now. It was pointless. So, like, what were we doing? And,
yeah. I've a couple of minor plot holes aside, I've kind of enjoyed it. It has felt a bit like, and this is why I'm appreciating it more than you. It did have a very video game vibe to it. As in, we need to do this, and then you do this, you're on to the next.
That's what
level.
I didn't like. It was giving me horrible blooming Rise of Skywalker vibes. I was like, oh no, not Fetch Quest the series. I really could live without this.
Unless Michael pulled out a knife that could, was a map to a crashed space station.
I mean, it wasn't far off that, though. The way it was like, we're going to go to this planet and we'll save them, and in doing so, we'll find out that their secret artifact is actually the key to our particular thing, which was, seeded hundreds of years ago by people that were storing it away. And I was like, oh, go away. I just can't be doing with it. I mean, there was episodes and things that I liked within that plot line, like the episode where they fractured time, which is so weird that was kind of written and filmed when they didn't even know it was going to be a final season, because it's such a nice little callback to everything we've had throughout. and I loved seeing Narn again. I didn't expect that, and it was a pleasant surprise. I'm probably mispronouncing it. Narn or Nan, whatever. One of them you have with curry, and one of them's a nice guy.
You're making me hungry. That reminds me, right, of the only plot line, the only like plot hole that I thought they would eventually explain, but it was never kind of mentioned again.
Okay.
They got the instructions to head to Trill,
Mm-hmm.
and Maul and Locke ended up with the wrong set of instructions,
Yeah.
and went to Beta Z, apparently. Yet at the end of that episode with the Trill, Maul ends up putting the time bug on Adira. How the hell did they know where to go?
I'm sure it probably was mentioned in dialogue, but I've only seen it once, so I obviously missed it as well. But like I said, that was the part of the storyline throughout that I was just like, I don't really care.
Yeah,
but there's so many. I mean, there's gaps in logic galore. Like, I really hated the fact that they destroyed Maul and Locke's ship, so they arrived on the ISS Enterprise. Let's reuse the Strange New World sets. And then because they had to escape, they were like, oh, they've escaped in a medical escape pod which can achieve warp. I was like, that we've never heard of before, and that can somehow outrun a spore drive?
It happens. It happens.
No, it doesn't. That's just dumb. That's just like, we need them to escape, so let's throw logic out of the window. It's the one thing you possibly can't do in Discovery.
For the last 2 weeks, I've been dealing with nitpicking on a Star Wars TV show. This is like the most logical thing in the world in comparison.
Fair enough. But no, I even liked Locke and Maul, and I really liked the. Well, I'll get to the other thing later. But how did you feel about the wrap up to the Calypso short track that wound up being part of the epilogue?
I'm glad they addressed it, because I was worried it was just going to finish and we were just,
I was convinced they weren't going to bring it up.
Yeah, we're just going to be like, okay, but how? So the fact that they actually did address it, and they even had the original setup for the Discovery in it, the original Discovery design. I like that. I like that a lot.
They defitted it effectively.
Yeah, it would be nice to see just where that goes. I don't think we're ever going to see it now.
Well, I can annoy the heck out of you with some information if you want.
Go on.
If the show had gotten a 6th season, it was already in the writing stages. The entire season was going to be basically to tie into the Calypso short track. So,
Paramount, you bunch of twats!
I know, right?
Jesus.
Yeah, they interviewed Michelle Paradise, the showrunner, and she was like, "We knew we were going to have to bring that up, and we were going to make the full season be about like tying it into that and what the relevance of that would be." And then, like I said, when they got cancelled, they were like, well, we've got 20 minutes to do that and wrap everything else up. So I felt like I wasn't expecting them to address it, and I was quite pleased they did, even though they got away with a lot by saying it's a red directive mission, so we can't explain why we have to make it look like its original configuration and disappear for 1,000 years. But shush, it's a special mission. That's all you need to know. Like, I can live with it.
I am glad that they addressed it, but to know what might have happened... Oh, God. It's like Paramount are going out of their way to just be the most awkward bunch of idiots possible.
It's like, what's the worst possible decision we can make at this point?
Yeah. Every single time. At every juncture. What's the worst thing that's what Paramount's going to do?
Listener, if you're wondering why we never get advanced screeners off Paramount.
Because we're actually honest. We're honest.
Exactly.
And
they've
right now...
mismanaged this brand too much to piss us off over the years.
Star Trek is run by by Billy Mooney from the Twilight Zone, who doesn't get what he wants and then just chucks it out into the cornfield.
I wouldn't even say that. I think it's run by people that just don't understand how to manage. Not even just Star Trek. Like, I don't want to be the fanboy. Like, I don't think they understand how to manage a brand. To be honest, at this point,
I'll be fair. Paramount aren't alone in there at this point.
True,
Having just come down off a campaign against NBC, it's not just Paramount. I don't think you're very lucky to find a single exec that knows their own ass from their elbow.
Yeah, it's true. Futurama had that right. All the executives are just dumb.
Yeah.
Never mind. Cool. I'm going to stop the screen there then. I don't know why I needed a visual aid for that, but I just wanted to see that fantastic Admiral's uniform again. I think I messaged you at the time, or I messaged somebody. It might have been on our Discord to say that I was kind of gutted that the best uniform Discovery had in 5 years appeared for like 5 minutes at the epilogue. Like, how did it take them that long to get a really good uniform player?
I do have to give a shout out to John, who 3D prints the communicators, and I think about 10 minutes after the series aired, he'd already 3D printed one of the communicators from that epilogue. Like,
yeah, he's brilliant at that. Yeah. Awesome. Well, we've kind of already touched on this, but yeah, the second thing that I had written down here, I'm going to address it anyway. Hit or miss for the Star Trek short trek Calypso.
This was the standout one for me. I loved this one. I know I'm going against pretty much what I've just said. I do like the fact that it's kind of open-ended and you don't know, because those kind of things, they always get the audience's mind working, and it reaches into that little pocket of creativity that all fans have, where they can write it themselves in their head. And I think
I don't really need to with this. It's one of those weird situations where I'm kind of it's so perfect as its own little self-contained, like, weird love story type thing that I almost don't care.
It is. But as I say, because it exists in that kind of state where it's in an audience member's mind, so they can come up with their own background and what happens themselves. And I think, yes, if they'd addressed it in season 6, that would have been a perfect season 6 for me, mind you, unless they completely hashed it up. But you always have those kind of little things where someone takes something that was open-ended like Calypso, sets it down in concrete, and that has the capacity to disappoint so many people because it doesn't go how they want it to.
I'll be honest, they kind of touched on doing that in the Discovery finale, and I was a little bit annoyed at, like, Burnham when she was like, "Oh, it's a reg directive mission, so I've got no idea why we're doing this, but I did overhear the name Kraft," and I'm kind of like, why the heck would you know the name of somebody that's supposed to be just happening upon this by chance 1,000 years from now? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if Kovic / the other name is involved, then it is possible. But
that's true. Yeah.
I remember when short treks came out, some of them were okay, some of them not so great. This one was a standout for me, and they never kind of... I thought they were... this was at the top of the ranking, and to me, even with season 2 of short treks, it never reached that peak, if you know what I mean. I love things
I kind of like most of them, to be honest, I think. Yeah, but I mean, you're right. I think this is the highlight, along with, for me, Ephraim and Dot, which is such a different episode completely to this in its own way. Because, like, I mean, for one thing, it's animated compared to live action, and it's very Trek referential, where this is just like, you know, basic Trek to tell this story kind of thing. So, yeah. But I mean, we didn't really establish, just by the way, just to put it on the books. I said Discovery finale was a hit for me. What did you think?
God, yeah, we did. We talked for half an hour and didn't say. Yeah, it was a hit. And you know, in lieu of forgetting again, this one is a surefire 100% hit for me. This.
I mean, I'm sure we could have gathered that from the context of what was being said, but I just wanted to have it officially said. And yeah, same for me. I think it's a hit. And like I said, I think it does stand out. Although I'll be honest, I like a lot of the short treks. I think the one with Saru's really impactful. I like the one with...
I even like the one with Tilly.
That's what I mean, the introduction of that character that we see in season 2.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I like... There hasn't been one that I've actively kind of disliked.
There's a couple, I'll be honest.
I mean, one of them that everybody else seems to dislike, I like simply because of one of the cast members in it. But I'm not going to go into that.
Is it The Trouble with Edward?
It might well be. Yeah.
No.
But there's none I've actively, disliked.
I didn't particularly care for the girl who made the stars. I just found it boring, and I feel bad for saying that, but yeah. I didn't really like Children of Mars, even though I know it's like set up for Picard.
It's none of them ever reached the fight territory for me.
No, I mean, none of them are stinkers. That's why I bought the set of them.
Exactly. But this one, yeah, as I say, this one was head and shoulders for me above the rest. I love the mystery aspect of it. Because although, as you say, it's a brilliant love story, I do like that unexplained vibe that runs along. Because all the time. Well, I am anyway. My mind's thinking, what's going on? Where is everyone and all that? And I love
It's
that
so
kind
weird
of
because
thing.
we have such different experiences. I'm just literally going with the flow of it and just kind of like I said, I almost don't care where the two characters come from because I'm just invested in the emotion of the moment, I suppose.
Yeah, I love. I don't know. I don't know if it's because of my love for Lynch or stuff like. I love the unknown quantity of things. I love open endedness, and yeah, it just hit all the buttons for me. It don't, as I say, don't get me wrong. It was a great love story, but it to have it rooted in such an unknown quantity, at least for Trek, uh, I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I think just one last thought for me. I like the mystery because to me it adds to the kind of ethereal, otherworldly kind of feel. Like this is based on one of the Shakespeare plays that's like a magical island or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I get that sense from it. And I think the mystery aids that as opposed to like anything else. And it's just well acted and well written, and a big hit all around. I think effectively.
Yeah, I'm gonna retcon my earlier answer and just say I'm glad they didn't do season 6 now, because it maybe would have ruined this, because it would have, as I say,
I don't know.
solidified what actually happened.
I don't think it would have touched on the actual events within the short trek, but personally, even though I forgive them because I know they were rushed and they kind of writ it off as Red Directive, blah, 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 I still would have liked them to explain within the course of a season, why have you got to make Discovery go to its original configuration? Why is that important? Why have we got to go to these particular coordinates? Why are we waiting for 1,000 years? These are the things that aren't addressed that could have been interesting. I don't want to address where craft comes from or pretend that that's destiny or whatever, but I would like to know what the mission was that Discovery was on, that it was abandoned for that long.
You see, I thought they were going to. I thought they touched upon it. They started to briefly. And I could be completely wrong because my memory is Swiss cheese at the best of times. But I thought they started to touch upon it in season 3, because didn't they mention the Vidrash at that point?
Yep, I was just going to say that. That's another thing I would have liked, is because the fact is that Kraft talks like he's been the victim of a war against the Vidrash, who were the bad guys, which is obviously Federation in pidgin language that's been twisted into this word. And as you said in season 3, when they first arrive in the future in Far From Home, the bad guy, whose name I can't recall, he was a real jerk. He did say that. He says, "Oh, you're from the Vidrash," meaning the Federation. So again, that could have been interesting to explore in a season 6 if we got one, but it's not to be.
Maybe IDW will get a comic book out there at some point.
Oh, maybe. I'm sure something will come of it. But one last thing then here, hedging bets. Do we think that they kind of presumably have to put Calypso on the season 5 set as a special feature, right?
Again, we're going back to company directives here, and I'm sure that it'll just go over most of their heads. Maybe
it's so important to that finale. They've got to have it on the last disc as an extra.
They could do, or they could use it as an excuse for people to go and spend money and get the entire Short Treks collection.
Yeah, that's true. Oh well, we shall see. It'll be interesting to see, because I kind of want people that haven't seen it to see it, especially if they've seen that finale and the way it ties in. Yeah. Anyway, I can't believe how long we can talk without even having a guest.
Yeah.
Oh, good Lord. Well, third thing on the list, we're going to have to pick up the pace a bit, but I'm sure we will. The third thing is a Romulan tie-in to go along with this series, and it actually ties into the episode we're talking about. So hit or miss for the Romulan bird of prey, specifically from the 22nd century. I love my ships, so there you go.
Yeah, I do. I kind of like this one. You don't see it very much. You don't see inside it, unless you're doing the later Enterprise episodes, and I've completely forgotten.
I don't think you see inside the drone ship, or no, you don't see that. You briefly see inside the drone ship, and you see on Romulus where they're remote controlling it. I don't think you see inside of one of their ships.
Yeah, it has, especially with the nacelles. It does give me Next Generation, the Deridex vibes. With the light up nacelles, but I actually do like this. I think it's a nice little design. It's a kind of an updated version of the TOS one, and it doesn't stray too far, but kind of updates it, and I like that.
Yeah. So hit from you, yeah. Yeah, and the same. I think a massive hit, just because I can't explain why, but it does look somehow to me like something that would come before the ones that we know, Like it looks somehow more primitive, even though there's no logically like why I should think that, but I think it does a little bit. And I love that it's actually bright green, unlike the actual Romulan bird of prey from TOS and stuff, because that one's more like white grey, you know.
Yeah.
And I like this is bold green, unashamed. As you say, it's got the Romulan lineage with the nacelles and the things, but it also is clearly a bird of prey because of the shape and the look of it. And I think more so than even in the kind of classic bird of prey, the wings really do sort of come to a sharp angle, like really aggressive. And having just watched the episode, when you see like 2 or 3 of these things decloak, they look menacing. You know, it's like, oh crap. So yeah, I have to say, massive hit for me as well. So
yeah, it's a good one.
That was a nice short one.
Yeah, well, it was due.
Well, I was just going to say, we clearly took our own advice and we're like, shut up, get on with the episode. This might take a while again. We're going back to kind of the final season of Discovery in part, and it's something I was going to bring up earlier, but we'll deal with it now. Hit or miss in general for something which we've now got a lot more information about. Hit or miss for the Breen. Oh, that's not a good noise.
It's if you'd have asked me this prior to the last season of Discovery,
Would have been
I back in the Next Gen DS9 era, I loved them, and when we spoke to David Mack earlier this year, and if you've not seen that interview, please go and check it out. I did love his kind of take on the Breen.
Yeah.
That they weren't exactly just one race. The different factions, they had different races underneath their...
I mean, that still could technically be the case.
It could
they do mention different...
what
do they call them? Different things? Like different... there's a word, but I forget. But they each have their own Primarch and they are distinct sects, I guess.
Yeah. But it was written in a way in... forgot the name of the damn book.
Oh, the David Mack series.
Yeah, it was part of the Typhon Pact. Zero Sum game. It was Zero Sum game when Bashir has to go undercover at a Breen kind of like in a Breen city station kind of thing, but it wasn't just factions. You had different. You had different species regardless of faction underneath the coverings, and this is going back to what I was saying earlier. I loved the fact of the Breen back then, because your own imagination could conjure up. Once this happened in Discovery, for a lot of people, it more or less solidified in concrete what the Breen are, and I think it kind of ruined the mystery. And
the irony of solidifying a species who are all jelly-like.
Yes. And it I don't know, it's just the fact that you had everybody thinking, oh, what they look like. So when you see one, and to be fair, a lot of people will have gone, oh, they look like that. It kind of ruins it. I did like that they were a big threat.
Yes.
I love the Dreadnoughts. I think, Jesus, you don't want to miss with one of them. I didn't mind the updated look.
I think the updated look in terms of like before they open the helmet, I think it's fantastic because it's so. I mean, you can't see it in the picture that we have up on screen, but it's so reverential to what's come before that it looks so like at a glance you immediately think it's almost identical. But bear in mind it's been 800 years, so there would be changes, and they're subtle enough that okay, this is clearly the same thing.
Yeah, I did like that. I eventually came round to how Locke and his family and all that guffin looked, but I think it was kind of when for so many years we've had what do they look like under their protective suits and all that kind of stuff. And as I say, when we spoke to David Mack, it was a brilliant little deep dive into that, because I loved the thinking behind that. So to see, it's another humanoid. Obviously they're all humanoids anyway. Well, it's just a jelly baby in a suit, and
just for them to acquire it to, I guess, adjust to the suit doesn't mean it has to be necessarily.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know. I think it was a letdown for a lot of people, and me included, because it's like, we're going to see a Breen, and then I thought, no, they can't do that. Oh, they're doing it, Oh, oh. Anyway, let's get back to the Discovery. Yeah, it just felt like a bit of a letdown for me.
So
I mean,
would you say
I think
miss then in that sense?
the Breen in general a hit. How they developed them, not so much. I'm kind of middle of the road on that, because when it came down to it, I think I mentioned this in an earlier episode. Locke, he just looks like Jakar from Babylon 5, but without the dots.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I don't mind it. I mean, I quite like Locke's makeup anyway, although I would never have guessed Breen before it happened.
Yeah.
Or this idea that they can, form a solid state, but they are otherwise gelatinous or liquid, whatever you want to say. But I like that because it's different enough, and it still explains why they need the suits, and kind of the explanation that we almost got that in the past of like, well, their homeland or whatever, their planets are utterly freezing and they can survive on that, but they need these refrigeration suits. And there still kind of is a hint of maybe that is the point, like in that jelly-like form, they need to be cold. So that's why they've got these suits, and that, it still maintains the point of that. But also, I like that it kind of completely unintentionally, I assume, but it cleverly calls back to the late DS9 episodes. There's a fantastic exchange when Weyoun, one of the Weyouns, mentions to the female shapeshifter, I wonder what they look like under those masks. And she says something like, a braver man than you. And it just makes complete sense that the changelings, who are like this liquid life form, would immediately go towards the Breen as their allies and think higher of them because they aren't solid.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, this could be just be down to personal interpretation.
Of course, yeah.
I don't like everything revealed. I'm not one of these people that loves these, which some in fandom do, some in fandom don't. That they like every little avenue explored and explained away. I like the mystery of some things, and I think maybe just seeing them kind of took some of that mystery away from me.
I didn't mind it. I think I'm almost glad that they used the Breen and gave us a bit more than doing the same storyline with a species we'd never seen before. I don't think it would have been as impactful. And as you say, it wouldn't have made the Breen the threat of season 5 in quite the same cool way. And like I said, there is still room for interpretation. You could assume the different sects are different species or look different, or you take whatever you want from it. Really, yeah, we've only seen a couple of them.
But at that point, you're relying on your own headcanon and hoping that
you were anyway though, when it was a mystery.
Well, yeah, but you're hoping that a future showrunner is not going to come along and just say, yeah, that's definitely the Breen from now on. We're going to do this. I mean, just imagine.
Let's be honest though, they've ruined the Breen a heck of a lot less than they've ruined the Gorn in Strange New Worlds.
I don't know what you mean. Get Ripley on the phone.
But anyway,
they have a tendency to do that sometimes. Star Trek can take the most imaginative, the most creative, the most unknown quantity and threat of everyone, and kind of reduce it a little by explaining it away more.
I guess
you've seen it. Ironically enough, you've seen it with the Romulans. You've seen it with the Klingons. You've seen it with the Gorn. We've seen it with the Tholians. I mean, when you first saw Tholians in TOS.
Oh, but that was so cool when you saw that they were just like that.
It would be nice to see an alien in Trek that you don't necessarily find a hell of a lot out about.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I think, look, now you've put a little bit of doubt in my mind, because I think I love what they did with the Tholians because they stayed so respectful to what was already there, but expanded it as opposed to reinventing the wheel or coming up with something from scratch. And with the Breen, you kind of did come up with it, like you said, just from nowhere because you had nothing other than the suit. Yeah. But I think that still makes it a hit for me because I think they faced their own kind of Kobayashi Maru. They were never going to please everyone, and they were never going to do something there that would have everyone going, oh, that's great. Now that we've revealed that, so they decided to do it. I think they've kind of done as well as can perhaps be expected because I didn't mind it, and it makes sense. It's logical. It fed into the story of this season. Excuse me.
It's a fair enough look. I mean, the look of them aside and their biology aside, as I say, I think they were still a fantastic threat, and those dreadnoughts, I would lose battle control if I came up against one of those in a ship.
I mean, that doesn't entirely feed into our series, but it does, because, if you've met any Romulans, they will tell you never turn your back on a Breen. It's their saying. So that's my justification for it, and I'm sticking to it. So, yeah, one hit and one miss, weirdly, I think, for the Breen overall. Well,
see, I don't even want to be bad enough to say it's a miss. I'm going to say it's still a hit for me, but it's on the very, very low side. It's almost borderline.
I see. A lot will depend maybe on how it's developed and used by other people, perhaps.
Yeah.
Hit or miss the last thing for this week. And again, Romulan-themed, because we're trying to stick to that. Hit or miss for the character of Narissa from Star Trek Picard, a.k.a. Narissa Rizzo, back from Season 1, played by one of the two actresses called Peyton List. What do we make of her?
Ooh, I honestly can't remember her. I'm sorry, dude.
She's honestly, literally integral to the first season of Picard.
I can't remember pretty much anything.
She starts off undercover as the Federation security officer, gets revealed as a Romulan. She was revealed as the main Romulan bad guy's sister in a weird incestual kind of way. She kills Hugh.
Oh, her. Yeah. Yeah. I'm the very fact that she, even despite all her scenery chewing evilness, isn't that memorable to me. It's just gonna have to be a miss for me. I'm sorry, dude.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. It's a miss for me as well. I like this actress, and I've seen her in other things, mainly superhero stuff like Smallville and The Flash. So I know she can act even with, questionable, slightly over the top stuff. And this still came across as arch. This was still like, Cruella de Vil in the Star Trek universe kind of thing. Like, nah. I mean, it started off well with the idea that she was the Starfleet security and she was like undercover. We didn't know she was Romulan necessarily, and I was like, oh, this is intriguing. And then as soon as she was revealed as Romulan, it just became, mustache twirling, over the top, screeching, like, oh god. So yeah, wasn't a fan myself either. I'm afraid, just mainly because of the writing. Like I said, I don't think it's the actress's fault. It was just she was playing a very stereotypical arch villain. And like I say, this character was just, I don't know, it's hard to describe. She's too kind of evil witch.
A bit panto. A bit panto. A bit over
panto,
the,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a bit over the top. I mean, when you said the Romulan who was undercover in the Federation, my mind immediately went to, obviously, Tamlin Tomita. I probably got that name wrong.
I think wasn't she a Vulcan? Oh no, God. She was Vulcan. She was Romulan, but disguised. I don't know. It's been that long since I've watched season 1, but yeah, I know what you mean.
And I'd honestly forgot this person completely. For all her overacting, and I'm not saying it's her fault for overacting, because it's obviously the direction's going to be involved and they're going to instruct people on how to play this. But when you do have to start putting these things in, like, and touch upon the, as you mentioned it, the hints at incest kind of thing, you just think, okay, you're really trying too hard to be Game of Thrones now, and it's not kind of working. Just Star Trek doesn't need that. It doesn't need, and I think this is a problem with a lot of Star Treks, especially when it comes to the films, that once you have a very good antagonist, be it Khan, be it the Borg Queen, you need that kind of, the people making these things need that kind of character for the protagonist to bounce off. And it doesn't necessarily, Trek is one of those franchises that doesn't necessarily need that.
I mean, we've been on for a while now, so it makes sense for us to go to our next section and begin our analysis of the episode.
This is going to be 10 minutes long.
So, as I said, we are looking at the Star Trek Enterprise episode Minefield. And I apologise, by the way, retroactively for the last episode, The Defector, which was a random episode that dropped to kind of keep us taking over at one a month. In that episode, I forgot about the whole limerick and haiku thing I've had going on that we homage/stole from the Delta Flyers podcast. But fear not, I've remembered now. So in that one exception, I'm sorry, that's gone. The Defector, it's past. It's not done. But I have got a limerick and a haiku for Minefield. And as I've been doing, DK, I'm going to pop the choice with you. which do we start with and which do we end with? So what do you want to hear first?
Let's start with the haiku.
Okay.
I didn't get my way last time, so I'm gonna have it this time.
Fair enough. Yeah, this was surprisingly difficult for me to do because I don't know. It's one of those episodes where not a lot happens, but it's still intense. Anyway, so yeah, my haiku for this, which it does fit the structure, I checked. It would be simply, "Watch out, a cloaked mine. A bad time to get legless. Archer will save Reed."
I do like that one.
Cool. Well, that was the haiku then. You'll get your limerick at the end before we give our wrap-ups and stuff. But before that, and before we get into the review proper and the various sections, I do have a fair bit of behind-the-scenes information, which hopefully won't bore you too much. And I'm going to jump into that and pass it on to you now about this episode. So, this episode is written by first-time Trek writer John Shiban. He originally planned for the antagonists to be unknown aliens, which would have meant we wouldn't be looking at this episode, this series. During a writing staff meeting to beat out the episode structure, Brannon Braga suggested this could be the Romulans, which instantly excited and intrigued Shiban. Shiban joined Enterprise having previously worked on the X-Files for 7 years. He said it took some adjustment to write for the optimistic future of Star Trek, but that similar to his past work, quote, "Space is a scary place. There are creepy aliens and we don't know if we're going to succeed," unquote. Shiban was in part inspired by the television series Danger UXB, which was set during World War II and about a team dealing with unexploded bombs. Shiban had watched every episode of Enterprise to prepare for his first script, choosing to explore the Reed-Archer dynamic, which clearly wasn't the friendship that Archer and Tucker had. Shiban further noted, "We don't know a lot about Reed, which makes him a very interesting character. We know what his favourite food is, and we know a little bit about his relationship with his parents. We've got a situation where Reed and Archer are forced together, so what do they learn about each other, and how do they work well together, and how don't they?" Yeah, fair enough. The Romulan mine prop was later reused as the reactor of the Xindi weapon in the episode Countdown. Frugal Trek reusing its props, you gotta love it. Parts of Enterprise's hull had to be specially built for this episode, but were discarded afterwards. "We had to throw the pieces away," reflected production designer Herman Zimmerman. "We just didn't have any room to store them. They were so large." This episode represents the first appearance of a Romulan ship on the series, and humanity's and Starfleet's first chronological contact with one in all of Star Trek. So there you go. This episode takes place 2 episodes after Captain Archer learns the name of the Romulan Star Empire in Shockwave Part 2. He apparently didn't tell his crew about it because Ensign Sato mispronounces the word Romulan, as we know. This episode marks the introduction of the Romulans to the series, though their presence is more of a looming threat than a direct confrontation. The subtle introduction adds an element of foreboding and sets the stage for future conflicts with this enigmatic and dangerous species. The Romulan mines with their cloaking technology serve as an effective plot device to showcase the technological disparity and the inherent danger posed by the Romulans. In keeping with continuity established in Star Trek the original series, the Romulans in this episode are only heard and not seen. Romulans are seen visually for the first time by humans and Vulcans in the original series' Balance of Terror episode, which we reviewed at the start of this series. Although some Vulcans did conspire with Romulans behind the scenes in the 22nd century and knew of the connection between their species, as we see in Enterprise Series 4 episode Kiyashara. Although new, lighter blue-coloured Starfleet jumpsuits were produced for the second season, they weren't seen until this episode. At first worn by only the regular cast, the new uniform colour eventually became more widely used as the season continued. I've got to be honest, I did not notice that at all.
I didn't.
Yeah. This episode features... this is my bugbear right here, so get ready for this soapbox. This episode features Romulan cloaking technology, while Balance of Terror depicts cloaking as a fairly new technology that Romulans are experimenting with. An explanation is given for this inconsistency in the non-canon novel, The Good That Men Do. The novel explains that the ships seen cloaking in this episode were 2 prototype birds of prey, which were being tested at the time. The Romulans had previously experimented with cloaking technology, but had only been able to apply it to their mines and not to their ships due to the huge amount of power needed. These ships were an attempt to deal with this problem. According to the novel, the prototype birds of prey were ultimately unsuccessful as the power needed put too much strain on the ships, and one of them was destroyed in an antimatter containment failure caused by its stealth systems. It would then be decades before the Romulans would successfully solve the problem and readjust canon with Balance of Terror. Another nitpick of mine that I picked up on, I probably wouldn't have noticed this, but it came up in, I think, on Memory Alpha. EV suits aboard Enterprise NX-01 are shown to be self-sealing in the event of a leak, which would be very handy on the Enterprise E more than 2 centuries later in Star Trek First Contact, when Worf seemed to have a suit that didn't actually include this feature. Weird that they would take away something in 200 years that would be useful.
In fairness, we are no stranger to technology messing up. So, Worf could have just
we
been...
can just assume that Worf should have done that, but doesn't.
Yeah. Well, Worf had a suit that was part of the Hit or Miss podcast. So,
Oh, bless. So, yeah, that's all I have for the behind-the-scenes section. So, again, just to give you the way that we do things here, we break our review down into sections just to keep our notes, in order. Things like writing, plot, direction, acting, VFX, your production design, music and sound, if there's anything, blah, blah, blah. You'll see as we go along. But we don't stick rigidly to that. If the conversation flows one way, we tend to follow that along with it. You've probably been bored senseless by hearing me say this many times if you're a regular listener, but if it's your first time, hopefully it explains things a little bit to you. So, I want to start with the writing and the plot, because why not? I have a tiny bit of kind of behind-the-scenes stuff related to just the specific writing, but I'm not going to want to bore the audience with that right away after hearing me ramble enough during the actual BTS. So I'm first going to ask you, DK, what are your overall thoughts on the writing and plot of this episode?
It's not bad. It's a bit of a tricky one. It's kind of a... I'm not going to say a bottle show, but it's kind of approaching that territory between Reed and Archer. And I do like the little setup, the little dynamic with regards to that. Did it need the Romulans? No. I do like that it features the Romulans, however you're gonna nitpick it. It's a decent enough setup, and I think it's one of those episodes that shows maybe Archer's enthusiasm can sometimes outweigh his cautiousness, which, obviously the character learned himself as it went on. I don't know. I like it. It's efficient. It doesn't. It's not. It's not up there, I would say, with Shuttlepod 1. It's a decent enough two-hand. It has quite a lot of tension in it. I think they use it well. Yeah, there's nothing that I dislike about it. I think the writing is efficient. I think it manages to pack a lot in. I would have liked to have seen some kind of maybe follow up, because the only things I can remember dynamic wise between Archer and Reed is this episode, and then by the time you get to season 4, the whole Section 31 nonsense.
Well, there is Reed's kind of... I mean, Archer's tangentially involved, but there's Reed's kind of conflict with the Makos in season 3.
Yeah, but you never... you never really see kind of not necessarily a fallout of this episode, but it would have been nice to see more of a bonding between Archer.
I see what you mean. You don't see any fallout in regards to the characters, but you definitely see fallout. One of the things I like about the episode is that the next episode is literally about them having to repair the ship from the damage. It's not like it happened off screen and we're fine the next week or whatever. So there is definitely repercussions felt. And I like that, they don't forget that Archer heard saw the little glimpse of the words Romulan Star Empire, which was a nice touch, that he remembered seeing that with Daniels.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally like it. I put it up there very nearly with Shuttlepod 1, which is the first thing that I compare this to as I'm remembering the episodes.
It's the one that I do, yeah. But but to me, it's not as impactful.
And I think I like it almost as much, very nearly as much, because unlike Shuttlepod 1 with Trip and Tucker, who are very much, what's the word I'm looking for? They're kind of colleagues, they're peers. They're, even though there's a disparity in rank, they are kind of, they're the same, almost like the same rank and social structure in some ways. And I like that it plays with the differences between Archer and Reed. And I love that they bring in, Reed being stuffy and overly attached to formality and willing to die for his cause and whatever else and stiff upper lip. And you contrast that with Archer, who's actually in command and is very like, I can't be like that because all we have out here is each other, so I have to be a little bit looser and a little bit less, super strict. And I love that the episode seeds that from the very beginning when Reed goes to breakfast and Archer has to sit him down and be like, it's not a visit to the principal's office, dude. Just chill.
And I also like the fact that it does go into that later on where they're trying to make conversation outside, and Archer's, asks Reed, how do you think things could be improved? And Reed just starts listed off all these things that about Archer's captaining style.
Well, yeah, he mentions a couple of things, but I do think Archer has a great answer for them all. To be perfectly honest, he's not sitting there taking it like a sucker, and I think that aids the kind of the appearance of him as the man in charge and as the captain, because
Oh yeah, definitely.
like you say, he's not sitting there like, no, you're right. He's like, yeah, no, I'm aware of your concerns, but if we did things your way, here's why it would be wrong.
Yeah.
So,
And he points that out to him later. That
Yeah.
if that's the case, he would have been jettisoned.
yeah, exactly. And even Reed comes around to the point. I mean, I know it's kind of for a joke and a bit of levity, but at the very end he says like, oh, it turns out your style of command has some advantages, Captain.
Yeah.
So, and I like Archer's style of command generally, because he's not like super informal, like everybody's friend kind of thing in the way that you might think could be over the top, but he does feel way more, I don't know, approachable somehow. Like he's clearly in charge. He leads everybody. There's no doubt about who's in command, but he doesn't feel as much like like if I was serving on that ship, I wouldn't be scared to approach him, if you know what I mean.
No,
Like
Archer. I think Archer gets a lot of flack from fandom, and because every time I see who's the best captain, invariably when they ask who's the worst captain, everybody goes to Archer, and
I don't know why. I'd never seen that, and I would kick off.
I think it's really unfair. I love the early season Archer, where he's genuinely enthusiastic. He has this love of exploration. He wants to find things out. He wants to make friends. I'm not going to say naive, but he's a lot more trusting. When you get to the Xindi arc and onwards from there, you see another side to Archer, obviously, because of the predicaments that he's in, that seem kind of... He's more a shoot first, ask questions later kind of thing. And I miss the optimistic Archer of this season and the one before.
I think I like that about that. That's not what we're looking at, but I think I like that about that arc, is that it shows the impact of what's happening and the effect of war, and it does, it shows that he had to adjust, and even though he doesn't like it himself, and by season 4, I would argue that's the point. He's kind of offloads that to Captain Hernandez, and like, I'm not happy about all this. We had to do what we had to do. We were successful. And then, as you say, I think from there, there's a little bit of a return to that optimism for the rest of season 4 of the Archer that we kind of know.
I don't like this. This Archer's not a good captain.
I don't get that.
I don't get that myself. And I see maybe they're picking up on kind of like Reed's small criticisms in this, but to me, it's about as valid as saying Burnham's not a great captain because she shows emotion. I think it's just down to people's preference and what they think makes a good captain, and just because they don't agree with a particular style, they don't think it's worthy of captain material. And I love Archer. I just think
I do too. I think he's perfect for this mission. The very first Warp 5 deep space mission, the first representative of humanity. You're not going to want somebody out there off-putting or super strict or whatever. Not just for a crew perspective, but like that's the first contact your planet is making with people.
And I do like the fact that you can tell in that first scene between him and Reed, he really is trying. He really, he wants to get to know Reed. He wants to be friendly. Reed's not making it entirely easy. And Archer is trying his best, and you can tell he's getting more than a little infuriated.
I really love that. I don't want to, bring this down or make it overly, sentimental or whatever, but I love that scene because as somebody who, was diagnosed with autism, not to bring that into it, but I can relate to Reed so much in that moment. Like, he's not picking up on Archer's social cues at all. He's awkward. He will not relax. He's brought work with him because he thinks that's like, oh, well, here, we may as well do something functional. And I'm like, that is, it's painful how much I see myself in Reed throughout this episode.
The weird thing is in that scenario, I can identify with Archer because I have certain family members that act like Reed. Not all the time, but they are very much in that mould. And trying to have a conversation with them sometimes, when I'm watching that scene, I'm just, my heart goes out to Archer because I know exactly how difficult it is to just keep smiling. You'll get through this.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. And I just love. I've been in that situation that they kind of make a great bit of humor of, where you're finally allowed to leave and you just basically run out of there and open the door for the
Yeah,
person.
everybody's reaching for the door at the same time.
Yeah. So yeah, I saw myself in that in a lot of different ways, both intense and otherwise. But no, my first and only bit of kind of BTS stuff related to the writing is related to that scene, so I may as well bring it up now. For any sports fans, during breakfast, Archer mentions that England has made it to the final round of the World Cup, revealing that the World Cup, unlike the World Series, has survived into the mid-22nd century. And consistent with the differing customs of their respective homelands, the World Cup sport is referred to as soccer by the American Archer and football by the British Reed correctly.
I did like that little touch.
Yeah, but I don't follow football, sir.
Yeah, and
I love that.
You know, it's in any other sport? Not really, sir. And
No,
like,
not really.
I was sat watching this with someone and they looked at me and said, "Reminds me of a British person I know. Doesn't like football."
You're right, though. I mean, as much as I can relate to Reed, I've also been in conversations at times where it feels like pulling teeth, and it's not so much that opening scene. It's later on when they're out on the hull, and he's like, "So, any hobbies?" "Not really, sir." Like, that's ridiculous. Everybody has hobbies, dude.
I do like that Reed is that it's not just this episode. I do like that Reed is magnificently reserved, keeps himself to himself. Like the thing where they were trying to find out his favourite food for his birthday.
Yeah.
And I just love that. He's and. When you and this is why I think Dominic Keating's such. I'm jumping ahead here. Dominic Keating's such a great actor because when you see Dominic Keating, he is the opposite of reserved.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he's very sociable. I think is the word. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, Reed has that. Like I said, that's the thing is that
I can tell you a couple of stories from a con, mate. But
definitely. But no, I like that. Like Enterprise has three-dimensional characters in that way, so no character is a monolith. So as much as you're absolutely right, and we should kind of hate in some ways the way that Reed is the British stereotype of the stiff upper lips, buttoned up, going to keep everything rigid. But he's not like that around, like I said, Tucker, for example. You put him and Chip in a room, and they're like just and again, that's what a person is like. They're not like one thing at all times. No. You know, so.
He does open up, but I mean, you know, he with the dialogue in this, and some of it's a little hokey, but he does open up about his uncle and things like that, and you see that he's not. Yes, he is this kind of reserved, stiff upper lip, but he's got this great vulnerability below the surface that he's constantly trying to keep at bay. If you know what I mean.
Absolutely, yeah. And like I say, everything we learn about him is always so fascinating and just so like you really want to learn more little pieces of the puzzle. Like learning about his aquaphobia in this episode is just like, wow, that's a puzzle piece towards the read. Like, why did he not join the Royal Navy and join Starfleet? Oh, because you're scared of water. Makes sense. But, I get it. But I think I'm going to just quickly go to my notes and see what I've said. So first of all, I said I like that. As much as I sometimes complain about prequels and about Enterprise being a prequel in particular, I think this episode uses that concept really well because it gives you the more visceral, dangerous feel to the threat of the mine and the idea that somebody has to personally go out there and defuse it. It attaches, we don't have shields. It attaches right to the hull. It's not a question of, just, do some kind of sweep or whatever and knock it off, or if we're going on new Trek rules, send out a dot to pull it off the hill or whatever. So it feels like, oh crap, this is a serious, almost current day NASA type situation where somebody's got a spacewalk out there into danger and diffuse this. And I think, outside of a prequel, I don't think this episode would have worked because you'd have to jump through so many hoops of how did it get past all these security features and stuff. Yeah. So
this is what I love about Enterprise. The fact that it is that kind of those pioneering first years, and it's more akin to modern technology, and the solutions that they have to come up with aren't all just beam it off or send out a pulse from the deflector array. It is people kind of having to put themselves in very dangerous situations and getting their hands dirty.
Definitely, yeah. And related to that, and again, maybe this is an autism thing, I'm not sure, but there's something really satisfying and cool about having to see Archer, pull things out and work controls and turn things around and push them back and everything, as opposed to just everything being a screen button that you just tap a couple of times. It's like, it adds that visceral element of like you're connected to what's going on and you can feel what he's trying to do and his tension in the moment, which you just wouldn't get from like, it's just a touch panel, you know what I mean? Touch this and then this and then whatever. And like I said, there's something really cool about, like, I really enjoy watching those scenes where he's like pulling out the rod, turning it a certain way, pushing them back in a different order or whatever. And it's like, I mean, there's probably no logical reason. It's nonsense. Of course it is, but it's, you believe it.
Yeah, it's not like, I'm flashing back to Next Generation's Naked Now when it's just like, oh Christ, we need to rearrange some isolinear chips and put them in different slots. As you say, it's someone getting stuck in, and it's tactile, as it were.
Yeah. I mean, in a weird way, it's a similar way to the like, even though it's way more advanced. I really enjoy the scene in First Contact when they have to, jettison the deflector, and it's not a simple question of pushing a button or two. They've got to go out on there, pull up a handle, turn it around, and push it back down again. It feels like, oh crap, this is going to be a real job and a half to do.
It adds to the tension. There are no shortcuts, as it were.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah. Did you have any thoughts about, like, I never usually remember this episode for much until I watch it, other than the Archer Reed dynamic, but then watching it again, it's like, oh no, the rest of the crew do, in fairness, have a fair amount to do. How do you feel about the way the crew are used? I'm thinking particularly of, Sato translating the Romulan language, Tucker having to be, the exasperated engineer, having to keep everything together, things like that, and then obviously T'Pol having to stand her ground against the Romulans.
Yeah, it's weird because my memories of this one are just of Archer and Reed on the hull of the ship. So it surprised me to see there was so much of the rest of the crew. You've got him piloting through the minefield.
Oh yeah, the really cool thing with the joystick.
Yeah. And then when he cut back to it later, and I thought they'd left it a while ago, but he's still flying. He's only just, and Tucker says, "Oh, you need a break. You've earned a break." I thought, Christ, yes, go take one. It does pretty much make use of the entire crew. It doesn't ignore anybody in this, and I like that. I for some reason I completely forgotten it, but everybody gets their little time to shine, whether it's Tucker with the engineering, dirty face and all, and cuts and bruises, and you've got Hoshi, who looks like I feel after your average session in sick bay, getting up saying, "Oh, I'll do it." I know exactly how she feels. I mean, and it's just, and then T'Pol stood in the middle of it all, just pulling that T'Pol look, and they all do really well. It doesn't ignore a single member of the cast. They all get their little, if this weren't, as a next gen, you'd maybe have Picard and Data, you'd have Riker say a line, and then 3 episodes later, Crusher would turn up. It's not like that with this. It's everybody gets a little shot, even though it's not their episode. They're there.
That's what I mean. It's like there's almost nothing for them in regards to like anything meaty, which is why you don't really remember them. But I will say I remembered it differently, like you, as being like, oh, this is the one where, for the majority of the time, or if not the whole runtime, you're only seeing, Bakula and Keating. So the rest of the cast probably got the week off or were filming something else or whatever. And you watch it and you're like, no, they're all there.
Yeah. and they give every single one of them something vital to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's even little things like when in that regard.
Yeah. Like when Archer comes in and he's like, well, I'm detaching the hull, and they think obviously the obvious, and then Paul's like, I'm sure you did everything you could. No, I'm going with him, and then tells her the plan, and she's like, well, I assume there's no point trying to talk you out of the plan. So, I mean, just little things like that. You just drop a line, sums up the character perfectly, off we go.
I know this is just me crossing fandoms, but I did get a kick out of, obviously it's Scott Bakula, but then it cuts to John Billingsley as Phlox, and the first line he says is, put him in the imaging chamber. Uh, and I don't know if it's just me, but I got a little kick out of that.
He was just hoping his next leap would be the leap out of the
Yeah.
minefield. Yeah. I mean, even Phlox, like, he gets his moments, he gets his whole, like, oh, my asthmatic eel will get to work out with your blood and whatever, and, oh, Hoshi, you're not going up there, you wouldn't make it to the lift, so we'll bring the stuff to you to translate and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Which is good. And one line which, for some reason, I remember some of the best, funniest lines and whatever, they always stick with me. But one line I always forget, and I haven't even written it as my favourite line. Maybe I should have, but I've written it just under the writing. I love the moment when it's like super tense and everything keeps going wrong and they keep having to say it. And then Reed just goes, I'm afraid we've got another problem, sir. I need to use the bathroom.
Yes.
And Archer's like, I'll tell anyone if you want. In my suit, sir.
Yeah. It's a nice little, and it shines up when you look at Sato's translation in this. It winds me up a little more about that horror scene in Undiscovered Country.
Because, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Although I will say it was way too quick from I'm able to vaguely translate this to now we can fully understand them. They're speaking English over the comms. I was like, all right, come on.
It's Sato. She can do no wrong for me. And I'm going to end that line of conversation there. Move on.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's. I mean, there's not really a lot else to say. I like without touching on just going through the episode. I love that. As I said, at first I had a real issue with the idea of Reed doing something stupid like taking out his air hose to save Archer the decision of having to jettison him, whatever else. And I was like, that's really dumb, it's horrible, it's stupid. And I was like, do you know what it is? It's exactly the kind of dumb shit that I would do without thinking about it. Like, I don't want to die, and I wouldn't put myself into peril, but I would entirely do something stupid that I'd be thoroughly embarrassed about later.
But I don't know, he's a bit of a drama queen in that moment. And you're like, oh, all right.
Just you wait till you get to the audience interactions.
Pack it in. But then, you've got the way the Romulan speaks at one point. It is... I could just imagine Vic Reeves clutching his handbag going, ooh! That Romulan really needs to calm down.
I like that it kind of shows, again, there's not much with the Romulans, but just that little bit of information where they're like, yeah, one crewman, you have another 90-odd on your ship, jettison him, kill him, and get out of my system.
Yeah. I do like the fact that, we figured, we know that you're going to detach a part of your ship, and you just think, ooh,
But we know what you're doing.
I do. There are a couple of moments in this, and obviously I watched a few when they were aired, but not all of it because it was a bit difficult to get in the UK back then for me.
Okay.
There are a couple of moments in this that I just thought, looking at it with hindsight now, even then it makes me kind of tense up a little. So watching it when it aired, I just thought, ooh. And one of them is the part where you, for a brief moment, you really think Reed's gonna buy it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I appreciate the writing on that because it's not. You actually you didn't think, oh, he's a member of the main cast, he'll be fine. For a brief moment, you thought, shit, they're actually gonna kill him off here. That one, and the section where they're on the bridge and they say, oh, the Romulans are hailing us. And T'Pol's heading towards the console, and inwardly I'm screaming as a fan, no, you're not supposed to see them yet. And I
knew that wasn't going to happen. I knew there would only be like, oh,
I know, but at the time when it was airing, I'm just thinking that the sphincter of fandom must have tightened so much.
Mine was already annoyed. I mean, I was already expelling the poop of bad continuity by the fact that they'd cloaked. It's like, as if the Suliban doing it isn't bad enough.
Yeah, I mean, I know from recent experience when we're watching Strange New Worlds and certain things happen and you're going, ooh. So I'm just trying to imagine how people would have reacted back then.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, Strange New Worlds it flaunts things a lot more than Enterprise did. I remember reading an interview where they said that they were going to use the Gorn in season 4 at one point, and then we're like, it's out of the question because the first contact with the Gorn is definitively in the original series. It couldn't be clearer. And then you get to Strange New Worlds, and it's like, nah,
screw that.
Oh well. But yeah, I love. I mean, there's not much to say. I love the banter in the episode between them. I love the comedy bits and pieces that come out from without seeming forced. They come out from the moments in the episode. The tension keeps me compelled throughout, and yeah, it's good dynamic. I think I agree with the writer there between Reed and Archer. I think it was really good to explore.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Did I have anything else? And the last thing I will say I really like, because I remember watching this the first time and being like, how the heck are they going to get out of this one? Because they've written themselves into such a corner of like, you can't cut through the leg because there's arming wires or whatever in there. You can't shut it off because you've tried and failed. Like, what are you going to actually do? And then the idea that they cut him off, and then within the few seconds they just jet pack themselves away and hold a couple of shuttle hatches towards the explosion. I was like, that's actually quite genius. Like, I would never in a million years have thought of it. And it doesn't hold up entirely to scrutiny if you think too much about it, maybe. But like, it works well enough.
Yeah, I'm going to say, don't make me break out the gel gif. But I think the only thing that I maybe could have done with, I mean, obviously you can't. There's time constraints. It would have been nice, instead of just finishing in the shuttle bay, it would have been nice to have an epilogue with, say, breakfast the morning after, with Reed turning up, and maybe a little bit more of an understanding between them. I would have liked to have seen something like that.
I see. Yeah, I get you. I can't disagree with you on that one. Yeah, I see what you mean. Even if it was in a different episode or later in the season and it was a bit more developed, perhaps. But
yeah.
Oh well.
That's what I mean. That's what I meant earlier by kind of fallout. Oh, yeah. It would have been nice to have picked up on it again.
Like I said, I can understand where you're coming from. There's very definitely actual consequences in universe, like in terms of the events, but like you said, character-wise, it feels like, is there really? Because a lot of it, I think we're supposed to be assuming is happening off screen. Like, oh, Reed and Archer have this agreement now. And don't get me wrong, this episode does a really good job of like deepening the bond between Reed and Archer for this episode, and you get that sense. And even without that epilogue thing that you said, even that little bit of joking around at the end of the episode of, oh, I'm not arguing with you, Malcolm. It was 20 seconds. That's an order.
Yes.
Kind of like, oh yeah, I like that. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, I think it's there, but yes, it would have been nice to have a little bit more of that, because that's a dynamic that worked. And you're right, they didn't really return to Reed and Archer nearly enough, I don't think.
No, I think it would have made those scenes later on in season 4 when Reed ends up in the brig for the Section 31 violations and countermanding orders. I think it would have made that a hell of a lot more impactful if they'd have developed the character relationship a little more after this episode.
Yeah, I see what you mean, definitely. Anything else on the writing, or should we move to the acting then?
No, by all means.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, we've kind of touched on it already, but obviously the bulk of the episode is Dominic Keating as Reed and Scott Bakula, Count Bakula himself as Captain Archer. So yeah, I mean, with Reed, apparently filming was complicated by the bulky environmental suits and the simulation of zero gravity, and Dominic Keating said, the spacesuits are the mother of all costumes. They weigh a ton, they're thick rubber, you sweat. I lost 5 pounds that week. He also said that Bakula seriously put his back out. Despite the difficulties, he was pleased with how the episode turned out. He said it meshed together really well, it delivered some good character moments and good action too. Great, yeah, that's basically all I have in terms of what the actors said about it, because I haven't got a quote from Bakula or anyone else. So
yeah, I remember him referred to that quite on more than one occasion in the old Shuttle Pod show. And,
right.
Yeah, they do mention that Bakula put his back out. They do state on several occasions that those EV suits weigh an absolute ton.
They don't look comfortable to wear like for a long period of time. So
no. I do appreciate the fact. I mean, it's bringing up a production design thing. I do like the design of those suits, so I think it works.
Oh yeah.
Within the context of the show, very well.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, definitely. They look. I mean, spacesuits are always cool, but yeah, cool. I think. I can't really say much than I've already said. I find Malcolm very relatable as an English person with incredible social awkwardness for various reasons. So I did find him relatable, and I thought I could see a lot of myself, so I could empathise. Not just because of the obvious, but also I think Dominic Keating's performance, even when he's being a little bit, I guess, sarky or a little bit, overly familiar maybe with the captain when he's criticising. You don't really hate him because you're kind of like, all right, we get where you're coming from. Just shut up, I guess, kind of thing.
It's very strange, but Reed is, and I've always thought that Reed is the one character I identify with the least.
Really?
Wow. Yeah, when it comes to Enterprise, I've never quite. I don't know if it's because of seeing Dominic Keating in things like Desmond's and stuff before that. So,
I thought I was the only one.
No. So seeing him as this, and seeing him in kind of real life, because I'd watched Enterprise again when it aired, the ones that I could, but it wasn't that many. So to see him then at cons and stuff like that, and to see how diametrically opposed his personality is to Reed, it always strikes me as Reed's a little too stiff. But I think that's just a kind of a personal thing. I've never really met anybody quite like Reed, so I couldn't say, if you know what I mean.
It's weird you say that, because I relate most to Reed, and I would say I'm probably very like him in a lot of ways, which is weird. Like, yeah, I can relate to a lot of the things. Like, not entirely. I wouldn't say that I'm like, well, maybe I am overly dramatic at times. And yes, I have been known to criticize people in positions of authority more than once. So yeah, maybe I am just a bit more like Reed than I want to admit, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's not down to Keating's performance, because Keating always gives a great performance as Reed. It's just I can't quite buy the character, but I think that's just personal experience. I've never come across anyone like Reed, and so to see a Brit in Enterprise, great, but to see the Brit be so reserved when, I'm from the North, that doesn't happen a great deal,
Again, I think it depends on the kind of person that you are.
Yeah.
Because for me, like I said, not only is he my favourite character from Enterprise, probably, I just find him very relatable, and I love the performance. I think Dominic Keating does a really good job. And as you said, part of that is because it's more impressive when you see that he's not anything like the character. So it is a performance. And I think it's weird that from what I've seen, like him and Connor Trenier are kind of weirdly the opposite of their characters.
They are, because when you see, I mean, I don't know them personally, so I couldn't comment, but when you see them talking in things like Shuttlepod Show, and it's now, what is it, Decon?
The Decon Chamber.
Decon Chamber, yeah. Out of the two, Connor Trenier is the more reserved. It's a very weird juxtaposition. Weirdly enough, as a Brit, Trip is the character I seem to associate with more. So I don't know where that mindset comes from. I've
have to ask podcast listeners what they think about a dynamic, and if they're aware of that. Do we come across like Reed and Trip? Maybe?
Yeah, that's weird. Right, we just needed to Paul to talk about a bum now. I'm gonna say, I don't think there's anybody on the Enterprise cast who is a bad actor.
No, I think it's probably the best overall cast, actually.
Yeah, and I know that poor old Jolene got criticised a heck of a lot for T'Pol, and I just can't see it.
Same. I don't really want to dwell on this much because we've already said it, and I think both of them give fantastic performances, and they're never less than engaging and really just interesting and compelling. And yeah, I mean, even like you said, when you thought it was a little bit over the top, Reed's kind of story about his uncle who was, terrified of drowning and then drowned and sacrificed himself heroically and everything. I believed every minute of that, and I thought that actually Keating underplayed it a little bit. It could have been a bit too dramatic, and for me, it was like, wow, this is quite impactful. But equally, I liked Bakula's like, I appreciate what you're trying to tell me, but we're not going to undergo heroics. Yeah, we're just here to do the job.
Bottle episodes only work, and to a certain extent, this is kind of a bottle episode. They only really work if you know that the actors involved in it can work with the dynamic and with the material given. The fact that Bakula and Keating are in this you know for a fact they can pull this off, and it does work. Like I said, it's not the height of bottle shows for me. Like I do prefer things like Shuttle Pod 1, but it is pretty damn good.
Yeah. See, I don't think it is necessarily a bottle show, as you said, when you watch it and you realise you've got too many things that are going on. You've got the ticking clock of the mine, the even more important one of the Romulans. Like I said, I love that moment where it turns out we get them into the shuttle bay and warp out of there like about 3 seconds before the Romulan disruptor would have actually hit us, because we got it that close. I'm like, all right, that's kind of cool. But yeah, sorry, you were saying.
No, that's again, it could be the memory thing. Like I said with the bottle show, I always saw this as a bottle show, but it was going back, and I'm not going to say bottle show, more of a two-hander, Mrs.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the fact that neither one of them outweighs the other.
Yeah.
But from what I understand, Bakula is he's a very down to earth, gracious actor anyway.
I've heard nothing but that. Yeah, everybody has said that.
Never, at the risk of disparaging another, he's not like another certain captain that would take lines. If anything, he was more likely to give more material to the other actors and help them through their issues.
On all of the, obviously I've watched through the Blu-ray sets, and on all the special features, everybody says he is the best number one on a call sheet you could ask for, because he really does lead them, but in the way that Archer does. He's not strict. He'll take your burden off you. He'll do the work. He'll be generous to you. He'll be there to support you, and you fully get that sense that that he's one of the best kind of. He's an actor's actor. He's there for everybody else. Which is fantastic. I think it maybe that's part of why I like Archer, is because I'm putting Bakula's persona on him, I guess.
It could well be. I mean, he played a very endearing character in that cool show that I was just referring to, and then he went into this, and again, it's another criticism that you see leveled at Enterprise. Oh, they were all kind of youngish actors. They didn't really know. I've never got that impression from Enterprise.
Nah,
they've always been a really good, endearing, personable, well-performed cast of characters.
Yeah, I love the cast of characters, definitely. I mean, and even when I kind of had issues with Enterprise, none of the issues I had were casting or characters or anything like that. It was always just kind of the prequel concept, issues with canon that all geeks have until you grow up a little bit.
Yeah.
Things like that, or we're doing the same Star Trek plotlines over and over again. Let's do something different till we get to season 3, and they've kind of learned that lesson. So, yeah. Anyway. And this is the one that I think actually is, like I said, it works better because of the prequel concept, and it is a story you could only tell in Enterprise, and it did a very good job. So,
yeah.
Any thoughts then on the directing? I only have a couple of things, thankfully, because we're fast approaching 2 hours.
Yeah, not really. I think the directing did a good job. Kept it tense where it really needed it. The last thing you needed to be watching an episode like this is to be bored, and I never got that.
Yeah. I agree. I think, sharp, focused direction, kept the narrative tight and engaging, paced fantastically, because I'm a stickler for pacing. I think the pacing's fantastic, the way that it intersperses the intense moments with the quiet, character things, either between, the two people on the hull or the crew inside the ship. Yeah, can't really disagree. And the only other thing I have on directing then is that visual effects producer Dan Curry came in for 2 days during the filming of the next episode to direct additional exterior ship shots with Dominic Keating. Just to give you some idea of how long they were out on that blooming bit of hull in those bulky suits having to do stuff. So, yeah, kudos. You got to show respect for that. Any thoughts then on the VFX or production design?
Pretty cool. I did like... we've already spoken about the EV suits. It was... we're obviously early 2000s with regards to CG, but it still holds up remarkably well when you see, Reed walking on the outside, and later on you see Archer and Reed, the CG setups. I think that's done well. I loved the Romulan mines as they were cloaked, and Mayweather's trying to steer through the minefield. Oh, yeah. I've got literally no complaints over this. I don't know if you've got anything with regards to the Romulans cloaking or decloaking or firing.
I already mentioned I didn't love the fact that they cloak, but it's not even Enterprise's first egregious use of that, because the idea is that nobody's even seen a cloaking device or heard of one at all, and at this point we'd already had the Suliban do it, so it's kind of like, that genie's out the bottle anyway, so what the heck. Yeah. But no, in terms of VFX and production, I've said it before, but I love the design. I mean, there's a reason why Enterprise NX-01 won our ship's pool. There's something about it that's quite tactical, and the idea that it's because it's beforehand, you get the sense of where every bit of hull is, and it looks and feels cool. And so, yeah, I think seeing those exterior hull plates and the way they all connect and seeing somebody walk around on them just gives you that.
I love the detail of having the serial number on each of the little plates. Because they would. It's not just... And I also love... In later, I say later, but earlier, episodes of Star Trek, you see the ships get rocked by explosions, you see bits blow off. But when that mine goes off on this, you feel it. When you see that ship, that the side of the hull exposed,
of the saucer.
Yeah, you just think, ooh, it's no news to anybody that listened to our favourite Federation ships that we both love the NX-01. Yeah. It's a brilliant little design. It somehow manages to straddle the line between a Star Trek aesthetic and a modern day, astronaut pioneer aesthetic, and I love that. And yeah, when it comes to the ship design, brilliant. When it comes to how they make that work in this episode, and it really does rely on it coming across like one of those pioneering days. They do it to a T, both with what you said, with the separation of the plate, with the hull explosion. Yeah, I just think I still think it's beautiful. And I'm, while it's happening, I'm rocking up in my mind whether had it gone on, would I have liked them adding that secondary hull? I'm not so sure.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, but they did at some point. We saw it in Picard. Canonically, yeah. It's there. So I would have probably lived with it, but I like the design. I still prefer the original design, definitely, even though the other one looks more like the 1701. Because why would it? It's not the same class. Anyway, but yeah, no, I've got nothing else to say. I've given my thoughts on the Romulan ship, and I have to say, even though I mentioned it earlier, I do love Travis's little retract-out joystick. It's so cool.
It reminded me of something else. Not the one in the motion picture with Chekhov, but it reminded me of someone.
The one in Insurrection with Riker?
That probably could be it. The only thing that got me on this one is that it extended. He took control of the joystick, and then it seemed to extend a little more. And at that point, it seemed to be quite uncomfortable for Travis. And I thought, ooh. But yeah.
Yeah, well, if it added to the tension. Yeah, I've literally got one note on the music and sound, but I'm going to ask if you've got anything.
I've got absolutely nothing. I mean, it's very much standard for.
I don't know if I would say it's standard, because I noticed it's effective, and it's not anything you haven't heard before, but it's very low and ominous throughout, which I think adds to the tension. Like, there's no jaunty bits, and there's nothing that is overly bombastic. It's very much like I said, it's just it's a low hum of tension throughout, and it aids you subconsciously to like, ooh, when are we going to reach the end of the situation? What's going to happen, etc. So I think I liked it for that reason, as I was actually listening out for it. Right. Any other last thoughts on anything then before we move along?
No, that's pretty much everything I've got, mate.
Right, so before we give our favourite things and our conclusions, I'm going to go over to the audience response. We always put out a little prompt on various social medias and ask what you think of the episodes, and today is no exception. So I've given this to DK to read, because again, I've talked way too much with my random ramblings. So yeah, without any further ado, we're going to go to the section that I call Subspace Communications.
Incoming transmission.
Yeah, and we got not too many on this, but. Yeah, Mark Luttrell, he just gives a man of few words. He just gives it 5 stars.
Is that from our Blue Sky page?
I believe so. Yeah. Over on Trek Twitter, Refugees, Lee Downey says, "I like the episode and usually like Reed, but man, anytime something goes wrong, he's like, I'm gonna die."
Did I include my response to that, by the way?
You don't know. That's the only thing I have here.
My response to him was, as a middle-aged English white dude, I can confirm we're just like that.
Yeah, that's fair enough. If I get a headache, it's not a headache, it's a tumour.
Exactly.
Yeah. Red Shirts and Runabouts, the Star Trek group. Is this? Yeah, I presume this is Facebook.
These are all
yeah?
on Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah. And Timothy Jackson, he says, I love this episode. First Enterprise episode I ever watched, and possibly the first Star Trek episode I ever watched. Good character backstory on Reed, and just a fun ticking time bomb story. Star Trek fans, British Isles, Tony Hickin, he says, I enjoyed the Romulan tease. I just wish they'd have actually revealed the Romulans that... Dude, you're a fan, calm down. It would have been an excellent story arc for Enterprise. Adrienne, on our Discord, she just says, ouchie leg.
True, very true.
On Instagram, Phil McCready, is it?
No, that's me. I just literally
I
copied
thought he was one of your. I thought you knew everyone, dude.
I think it's from the Hit or Miss Instagram, so it's not somebody I specifically know. No.
All right. He commented, definitely a hit for me. Tim Lade, he says it's one of my fave early episodes. And Steve Carroll, he says, I literally watched it with my wife last night. Her first time watching any Star Trek series, and so far she's really enjoyed Enterprise. I think it's the easiest series to introduce new people into Trek.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So, yeah, and that's the feedback on this one, dude.
Cool. Well, then, we're going to go and finish things up with our own thoughts, beginning with our favourite character moment and line, as we always do.
A spark, analysis.
So, there's only really two choices, I would say, but who's your favourite character in the episode and why?
I know it should be Reed, being a Brit, but it's going to be Archer. It's Scott Bakula. I can't fault Scott Bakula in anything. I've even watched episodes of, NCIS. Is it? No, CSI. Just
CSI,
because it's Scott Bakula. Dude's
Fair
a
enough.
mensch.
Yeah, my favourite character is Reed. I said, I know he's just too relatable. I know that it's obvious, but I just relate to him. And like I said, even the attempt at heroics, which just ends up being dumb shit, is exactly the kind of embarrassing thing that I would do, and then immediately regret and be thinking about in my sleep for the next 3 years. So yeah. So what's your favourite moment or scene or anything in the episode?
It's that initial breakfast scene.
Okay.
I think it kind of captures the essence of both characters and how their dynamic is perfectly, and it doesn't do it in such a way that it's over the top.
Yeah, I kind of agree actually. Yeah, it's a shame I didn't pick that. Unfortunately, I think maybe this comes from when I first viewed the episode and my memory of that. I thought the most impactful moment for me was just the oh crap moment of when the leg kind of comes out from nowhere and impales the little, like Malcolm's leg with it with the metal leg. You know what I mean? So when it goes through, and I'm just like, oh no. Now what are we gonna do? You are really in the poop at this point. So yeah, I thought it was an interesting thing to do, and again to write yourself into that corner and have to come out of it added the tension, something chronic. So what was your favourite line in the episode?
I'm surprised we've actually made it through a review and it's not been mentioned. It's when Reed says that he doesn't want any anesthetic and he gives it him anyway, and he's like, "Please, sir, may I have some more?"
His Oliver Twist impression, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want you too sedated. And equally, I'm surprised that mine hasn't come up as I've been dotting around it, but mine is just for comedy value. I love it when he's like, this morning at breakfast, we were talking about sports. You said you didn't follow any, but I'm afraid I haven't started following any since breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
Just beautifully cheeky. But cool. So yeah, then just to wrap up, then we just need to give our conclusion and our score out of 5 Starfleet Deltas, as we always do. DK, do you want to go first? Why not? You can start.
Yeah. I've got it. Doesn't set the world on fire, but it's a nice little two-hander, steady. That while not reaching the heights of Shuttlepod 1 for me, it's nevertheless entertaining in its own right. Suitably tense when it needs it, with a couple of honest to goodness, are they really gonna moments. And yeah, for me, it's bonus points for giving us a Romulan story without any Romulans chewing the scenery. It manages to show us their devious nature without falling back on the by now tired formula. So it's nice, and I've given it 4 out of 5.
Okay, cool. It occurs to me that I almost forgot, but I have now remembered that I had a limerick for you about this.
Before you do, normally you ask if I've got any /fic because I stupidly volunteered.
Ooh. Okay.
And I don't, but I just wanted to point this out, right?
Okay.
Archer invites Reed over for breakfast and a two-hander in which Reed is impaled and gets the use of the captain's nozzle while Travis grips his joystick. It doesn't really get any more slash fic than that, does it?
It really does. I bet there's loads of stuff on AO3 from this episode. Awesome. That's very funny. I like that. Now my limerick's going to seem like it's so pale in comparison.
No, dude. I always love these.
Awesome. So yeah, my limerick for Minefield, just to get it over with. Enterprise hits a cloaked mine. Reed gets stuck with his life on the line. Can he uphold rules and regs and still come out with 2 legs? Typical sneaky Romulan swine.
These are great. I hope you're saving all these.
I really am not. No, I mean they're going on the episodes. So.
You really should. You really should.
Put out a book sometime.
Yeah.
I knew you'd like that one because I insulted the Romulans at the end of it.
Yeah, that's always
that was
a
all
nice
it was
one.
going to say. So no, that's cool. Well, yeah, my conclusion then, just to again finish this off. Minefield is for me a standout episode that combines high stakes drama with rich character exploration. It highlights the themes of duty, sacrifice, and leadership that are central to Star Trek. The episode successfully introduces the new and formidable adversary of the Romulans, new to this show anyway, while providing a thrilling and emotionally resonant story. The sense of tension is palpable throughout. The narrative and direction keep me on the edge of my seat, while providing a couple of incredibly acted and enjoyable performances from Keating and Bakula. I could live without the canon violations, though I know that's a nerdy nitpick, and it might have been nice to see the rest of the crew involved a little bit more, or even a bit more made of the Romulans here. But all told, it's a memorable and impactful installment that, for me, exemplifies the best qualities of Star Trek Enterprise. And I give it a 4.5 out of 5, actually. Yeah. I like this episode quite a lot. It's one of my faves of Enterprise. So yeah, putting those two together and sharing by 2, not really all that complicated. There's only 2 of us. Gives you a final score.
I could do this.
I'm not even doing it on the calculator for once. But yeah, gives a final score for the Enterprise episode Minefield of 4.25 out of 5. So very good. That's for you to write on the leaderboard then, DK. That's got to be near the top at 4.25 out of 5. So
it's the fourth one down.
Oh, wow. So a lot of very high-ranked episodes, clearly, to do with Romulans, despite your hatred of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in fairness, I've not been on every episode, so...
That's true. So, yeah. Speaking of which, I don't know. You're not on the next episode, is that right?
I'm not, no.
Yeah.
Fair the audience gets a break for once.
But yeah, I think I don't know if you'll miss any more after that. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, so yeah, join us again next week then, when we're going to be reviewing another Romulan themed episode. This time from Star Trek Picard. God help us. So yeah, because there were no Romulans in season 3, fans. Just before you get excited. So yeah, we're going to be looking at season 1 episode of Picard, and I'm going to be joined hopefully by Jordan LaForden again and by Steve Brown again. Both have been on the episode before and are good friends of mine. So hopefully we can not have too much disagreement when it comes to the episode and have a good episode there. And again, a couple of more episodes in following weeks will be coming up to do with Romulans, and you might even see DK on at least one of those again. So yeah, just remains for me to say thank you if you've made it this far, particularly through a very long episode. Every time there's only 2 of us, I'm like, it'll be shorter. What would we have done if we had a guest on this one?
Yeah, you should know by now, dude.
So yeah, hopefully you haven't been too bored by us, or if you have, we apologize. But if you are, you do like this kind of thing, you enjoy the geeking out, you love Star Trek, you can find us at all the places you can see on screen if you're on YouTube that I will have edited in. I've made a little graphic which explains all the places you can find us on social media, mainly me or the podcasts. DK tends to keep to himself or just to hover around the Facebook groups and things. So yeah, you can do that. Or if you aren't watching on YouTube, you can always find our link tree in the episode description, which again will direct you to all of the places you can find either the podcast or me mainly. And yeah, anything else that you wanted to quickly say before we head out, DK?
No, you've pretty much said it all, mate.
Awesome. So yeah, join us again, as I said, next week for that Picard review and another episode. And in the meantime, just remember, we are Starfleet. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.
You have been listening to the Hit or Miss Star Trek podcast, hosted by Michael Wilson and DK. Produced and edited by Mike Wilson. Additional material by DK. Please remember to like this episode and spread it throughout subspace. Subscribe to the Hit or Miss YouTube channel and follow us online. Links to all of our social media pages can be found via the link tree listed in the episode's description. For any queries or to apply to be a guest on the show, you can also email homstartrek@gmail.com. This podcast is part of the Mike's Podcasts Network. You can listen to this and our sister podcasts on all good podcast providers by searching for Mike's Podcasts. Hit or Miss Podcast was based on an idea by Michael Wilson and Will Templer. Thank you for joining us. We hope you'll be back, but for now, hailing frequencies closed.
Gotta warp out of here at once, maximum speed.